it on to our host for today, Denisa Feddersen.
Dobré ráno, kuchaři. Pro ty, kteří jste v Kalifornii, good morning, cooks, for those of you who are in California, and good evening for those who are joining us from the Czech Republic. I know there are a few of you. My name is Denisa Feddersen. I am the financial secretary at Sokol San Francisco in the Bay Area, and I'll be serving as today's moderator. Thank you for donning your aprons this morning, rolling up your sleeves, washing your hands yet again, and joining us for this cooking session. We have three fantastic cooks. They're fantastic women in addition to that, but they are cooks, great cooks as well. We will have, they're all three Sokol San Francisco members, and they will teach us three different meals today. Today's session will be primarily in English, but with some Czech sprinkled in. Já mluvím česky I anglicky, but this is going to be primarily in English. If you have any questions, please type it in the chat. As Jana noted, this session is recorded, and the chat, I will monitor the chat throughout the cooking sessions, and we will address the questions as they come. This is meant to be interactive. Don't be shy. We're all friends, and we're happy to communicate and have this be an interactive session. With that, let me introduce our three cooks. Our first cook, who's going to be making sauerkraut soup, that's zelňačka, česky polívka, a to je Lenka Bagarian. Lenko, there's Lenka, hello. The second meal will be cream in dill sauce with dumplings. To je koprová omáčka s knedlíky a to bude Milena Harvey. Ahoj Mileno.
Dobré ráno, já mám jenom malou opravu. Dneska to nebude s knedlíkem, dneska to bude s bramborem, ale o knedlíkách budu mluvit.
Omlouvám se, s bramborem. A třetí, our third cook is Blanka Nejedlá, a Blanka will be making us a bundt cake that's gluten-free. Takže to bude bábovka gluten-free. I think we're starting with Lenka, if I'm not mistaken. Lenko, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lenka. I'm in California, and I'm
sorry to jump in. We need to have Blanca start because her bundt cake needs way more time in the oven.
All right, Blanca, go for it.
Sorry about that.
Hi, I am Blanca. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm gonna start the bundt cake, which is kind of a signature in a Czech cuisine. You can have many types of bundt cakes. What you need is a bundt cake pan. And the first thing you need to prep the pan by buttering it up. If you want to have your bundt cake gluten-free, you have to use gluten-free flour for the buttering. Or if you do not have a gluten-free flour, there are some options in the recipe. But I found out that if you just put a lot of softened butter, then it also works. But today I'm gonna show you the first option. So this is a 2 tablespoons of butter melted in a microwave. And you put in 1 tablespoon of gluten-free flour, or it can be any type of flour, almond flour, corn flour, rice flour. There is lots of types of flour which are gluten-free, just not a wheat flour. And you mix it in. I use a pastry brush to butter up my pan. This is a really quick way to do it and less messier than a traditional way. So for buttering up the pan, you can see I mix the flour and the melted butter. And then I take my brush and just brush it on the pan. The way, because the pan is cold or cool, so the butter is basically cooling on the side, so nothing is dripping away, and it nicely stays on the side. So this is the unbrushed side, and this is like the brushed side. You can see the butter and the flour in there. Another important thing you need to do at the start is to switch your oven on, to preheat the oven, because it takes here a little bit more time for oven to heat up. You can do it, you bake this pancake at 350 Fahrenheit. You can also, if you use Celsius, so I use 190 Celsius, but it depends on type of oven. And mine run a little bit on the lower side, so 180 Celsius should be fine. So that's it. So you butter up your pan, start preheating your oven, and now you're gonna mix the dry ingredients. So first, you have to use what I'm using. It's a Dr. Ector pudding. I strongly advise to buy this in a Russian store, Amazon. It's accessible, and to buy this brand, because the brands accessible here in US, the regular one, they have a lot of salt. I'm gonna these puddings, if you check the ingredients, they have salt in it. And because we're using a lot of the puddings, all of the packages, the salt will be like, it will be really salty. It will be the main taste. It will be
Too salty.
unedible. Yeah, it will be just unedible. So if you are not able to get this type of pudding, again, in the recipe, I put a cornstarch, how much cornstarch you can use, and as a substitute for this type of pudding. So you just basically put it in a bowl.
I have a question, Blanco, I have a question. So this pretty much is starch that's flavored with vanilla, correct? If you can't get your hands on this type of powder, then use starch instead.
Yes, you can use a cornstarch. I think the cornstarch works best. The potato starch has a distinguished taste. I never tried it with tapioca starch. It might work as well. But every starch has a little bit different qualities. They react differently. So this is a cornstarch, to be exact. So I'm using 4 packages, or you can use 6 ounces of the cornstarch with vanilla. So what I'm mixing, it's 4 packages of the pudding. And when I put in 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and you mix it as a dry ingredient, which is gonna be added later to our egg mixtures. For the wet ingredients, we are using 1 cup of oil. We are using 4 eggs. And we are whipping the eggs in a bowl. I'm using a stand mixer. You can also use a hand mixer, but it's really best if you whip up your eggs up to be nice and fluffy and stiff peaks. So how I do it is I just put 4 eggs inside a bowl. Then in an original recipe, it's 1 cup of sugar, but I like my bun cake to be less sweet, so I usually only put a half cup of sugar. So this is 1 cup of sugar. I'm usually putting like half cup of. I mix the sugar with the eggs to make the stiff peak. To help with the whipping, I'm also using like a pinch of the salt, just a pinch, no more, like that. And I use, as I said, a stand mixer, classic whip. I'll put it on. So now I can, if there are no other questions, I can pass it to Lenka, and I will be whipping this mixture.
Thank you very much, Blanco. Now, go ahead, Lenka.
Okay, here I am again. Okay, I'm Lenka. I'll be making sauerkraut soup or zelniaczka. I'm trying to follow a recipe that I got from my dad's second wife. She was actually from Slovakia, so it's more like a Slovakian recipe, although I always make everything a little more simple. So to start with, I already cut the onions, okay? And I'm gonna put them into oil. Katushko, I have a camera here, cameraman. Okay, so I'm putting the oil in a pot, not really measuring, let's say quarter of a cup. And then I'm gonna put the onions in. I forgot the stirring spoon. Okay, and we'll go back. Let's get the spoon there. And I will saute the onions so they're nicely golden. Then, according to the recipe, I'm using, of course, sauerkraut. I prefer to buy the Polish sauerkraut that doesn't have vinegar. This is a Wawel, which is a Polish company from Krakow. You can buy it in any, Russian stores or whatever stores, but sometimes you can even find it in a grocery stores. As the sauerkraut sometimes can be too sour, I prefer to rinse it. So I'll take a sieve, I'll go to the sink, try to empty it, which usually takes a while because it's really packed. Also, I sometimes use the sauerkraut from Costco, but it tends to be very sour. There you actually have to add sugar towards the end. So I prefer this Polish one. This one is not as sour. Okay, then I'm gonna rinse it as good as I can. I have bad water pressure, so it takes a while. And I mix it a little bit so the water gets, through it. Like this. And then I leave it for a while to, drip off the water. My next step that I actually will be adding to the sauteed onions will be a sausage. I usually buy any sausage that is smoked and has garlic in. If you can't find anything else, the Polish kielbasa or Polish sausage works really good. So, and that you can find anywhere. So I'm gonna cut the sausage into small pieces, and those pieces I will be adding later to the onions. I'm watching the onions, so they started to saute. And then I can start cutting the sausage. There. As the next ingredient that I will be adding pretty soon are potatoes. I use about 2 middle-sized potatoes that I will cut into small cubes too. And add, I usually, fry them with the sausage and the onions at the end. And this will take a while, so I'll pass the word to Milena.
Let me check. Blanco, are you ready to jump in, or should we go to Milena first? Blanco.
Give me a So I am just taking it out of the mixer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you through the noise my standing mixer was making. So this is how it should look like. So these are the whipped eggs with the sugar and a pinch of salt. I'm also want to show you the buttered pan. So this is how the pan looks like when it's properly buttered with the mixture of the butter and flour. I hope it's visible on the. Oh, and right now we're going to do the rest of the batter. So I am alternately putting oil and the cornstarch mix. So I put like 1/3 of oil and like 1/3 of flour, and very gently mixing oil and flour together. You don't wanna overmix. You don't wanna release the air bubbles you form by mixing. So the batter should still look very airy and fluffy. I'm using my whisk, which is already dirty from the egg mixture, so you don't need anything else for now. Just gently folding it in. Just like that. And the last of the oil. And last of the cornstarch.
Blanca, did you just put the whole eggs in there and whip them, or did you do them whites and then yolks?
So I use the whole egg and whip one. If you whip them on a high speed with a stand mixer with the sugar and salt, it works. I know if you have a hand mixer, sometimes it does not put the high speed and you might have a trouble. Then you might consider separating it, but then it's taking longer to put the batter together. So now it is done. You can see how fluffy, how airy it is, how nice it is. So definitely, if you are worried that you do not gonna get the nice fluffy condition, you can mix the egg whites and egg yolks separately. Then I recommend mix the egg yolks with the sugar and egg whites with the pinch of salt. That's the best way to do it if you do it separately. And then again, very gently fold the egg whites and egg yolks in, and then you can continue the same way. Or you can fold the egg whites mixture at the end of the mixing. That's also a possibility. So right now, look how nice, smooth the batter is. So you take your prep pan and you put about half of the batter, pour about the half of the batter inside your pan. And to the rest, because we're going to do a marble cake, you wanna put 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder. I'm using unsweetened Hershey cocoa powder. And again, gently fold it in. So you kind of make it a marble. You can, I realized that you can also use for the, if you do not find vanilla puddings, you can also use a chocolate pudding. And you will already have the whole bundt cake, like a chocolatey flavor. Then it's not gonna be a marble one, but chocolate one. But it also works. It's the same, basically the same thing. I do not recommend to using any fruity flavor or banana flavors. Banana flavor might be actually maybe okay, but the thing is that the flavors are usually artificial and do not go well with the bundt cake. So this is how the brown better looks. And I'm just gonna pour it on top. And because this one has a higher density, it's gonna sink through the white or the yellow layer, the vanilla layer, to the bottom of the bundt cake.
Blanco, máme dvě otázky. Jedna otázka je, what kind of oil are you using in the cake?
So you can use any type of oil. Right now, I am using an oil which my daughter used to fry koblížky yesterday.
So is it like a canola oil, vegetable oil? Can you use butter?
If you melt down the butter, you probably can use it. I never tried it with butter. I would recommend to use oil. So whatever type of oil you like, I would not use the virgin olive oil because in this quantity, it has a distinguished taste. And you might be able to taste the olive oil. You know, it's kind of like a bitter a little bit. So I would not use that. I'm gonna switch, if I can switch
one more question, and the question is, how much flour are you using?
I do not use flour.
So instead of flour, you're using the pudding powder. That's replacing the flour, correct?
I'm just showing you how the bundt cake looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna put it in the oven, and then I can ask for more of the questions. So my oven is preheated.
350?
I have it in Celsius, so I put 190.
Okay.
So can you see there?
Yes.
And it's baking. I will put a timer for 30 minutes. We will see if it will be enough. Okay, so this cake, this bundt cake is gluten-free in the nature. The one thing you have to keep in mind when you butter in the pan, if you want a person who has a gluten-free sensitivity or they are celiac disease or something, you have to butter the pan without using the flour, like a regular flour. You can use any type of gluten-free flour, or you can just, as I found out, put a lot of butter. So for that reason, you will just soften butter and with your fingers, spread the butter in a thick layer. That will prevent the cake sticking to the pan. So if you are not concerned with any people who has gluten-free sensibility or who has any type of gluten-free, who has any type of gluten allergy, then you can use a regular flour to butter up the pan. And you can still enjoy the cake as it is, because this cake is also like enjoyed by people who do not have gluten-free allergy. And what was the other question?
No, that was it. How much flour? And there is no flour. The pudding replaces the flour. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Blanco.
It's a cornstarch in case you do not have the pudding.
Correct.
There are no other liquids either, because if you put a milk or other liquids, you basically get a pudding. You do not get the cake. So you only use oil and eggs. You do not use liquids.
Thank you very much for clarifying. Now,
Okay.
Milena, are you next, or should we
Next.
go? Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So I'll be making koprovka.
Sorry, but I just need to do the next step because we're running out of time. We have only an hour.
Right.
Okay.
Okay?
Mhm.
Thanks.
And Blanco, before you start, there was a question. What kind of bouillon are you using? Is it a beef or vegetable?
I can show you, I use this bouillon, which is of course Costco, better than bouillon. It is a kind of like pasty consistence, and it really works good. I'll do that all right now. So let's just do it, okay? So here I have the sauteed onions, and I'm gonna add the sausage and the potato just to fry them a little bit. while I'm actually boiling water. So I'm adding later hot water into the pot. So it starts boiling faster. Lucky me. Okay, I'm gonna fry this a little bit. And because I'm frying, I'm gonna now add all the spices because we're waiting actually for this to be fried. So my spices that I'm gonna use will be a little bit of black pepper, which I can put it now, it doesn't really matter. Then about 2 tablespoons of paprika, red paprika powder, but not hot one, the sweet paprika. Oops. The sausages are already trying to fry, and the potato with the onions. Then the next spice that I use will be bay leaves. I use about 2 whole, mine are really crushed. So I use like 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. And then I'm using always Czech caraway seeds, which is green. And because some people in my family don't like to see the cumin or caraway seeds, I use the ground one or crushed one. About a teaspoon. That's that. Frying nicely, and it has the nice paprika color already. Now I boiled the water. It says what? 5 cups. Put the hot boiling water in. You see, it still keeps boiling. And then I'm gonna add the bouillon. But the bouillon I use like teaspoon. I use 2 teaspoons of the bouillon.
And did you dissolve it in about a cup of water, or how did you dissolve that?
It dissolves in the water automatically. It
just
dissolves
directly?
it dissolves very easily. And it's not too salty, so maybe towards the end you have to taste it and add some salt. Now I have to add the most important ingredient. And that would be the sauerkraut that I rinsed. And I'm gonna put it in.
And you add that before you add the potatoes?
The potatoes I added already with the sausage.
Oh, you already did. Okay. So
Yes.
this is the last ingredient, is the
This
sauerkraut.
is for me this time like the last ingredient, right? Because I wanted to fry the sausage first, so while we're on a camera, okay? Now I stir it. It's still pretty thick. Maybe I will need to add a little more water. But you see, it has already the nice paprika color. You see there are the potatoes and the sausages, onions, and all the spices. Now I will cover it with a lid and boil. I prefer at least half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. Do we have any questions?
So far, there are no questions in the chat. Does anybody have any questions that want to ask? Nope, no questions. So we're going to go to Milena. Thank you so much, Lenko.
Yes, thank you.
So let's start the sauce. I'm gonna I already pre-measured everything. So there, the recipe asks for 5 tablespoons of butter divided. So I have 1 tablespoon saved, which I'm gonna add at the very end. And I'm just gonna put the butter in the pan and melt it. You know, when you're melting butter, you wanna be careful. You don't wanna go anywhere because butter has a very low burning point. So you just want to melt it without burning it. So I'm doing that right now. And I'm gonna add, as soon as the butter is liquid, we don't really want it to start separating too much, because you know, when you, I'm sure you noticed before that when you heat up butter, it separates the water from the butter from the fat. So I just want to melt it without really separating, and I'm gonna add the pre-measured flour, which is 3/4 of a cup, and mix it in the butter to make a basic butter roux. And the koprová omáčka is a white sauce, so you don't want to fry it for too long. You kind of just want to heat up all the flour. Or before.
So you don't want to brown it. You don't want to brown
No,
it, is what you're
no,
saying.
it's kind of, no, you don't want to brown it. You would do that for goulash maybe, or if you did like mushroom sauce, or you know, if you would thicken dark sauces. But for all the cream sauces, you pretty much just make it pink. And that will take maybe a minute. I'm almost there. You know, I will show you how it looks. Kind of, I hurt myself. So it is kind of like a crumbly. It is not liquid, but it, I don't know, can you see it?
Yep, we can see it.
Crumbly. So now I turn it off the power, of the heat, and I want to let it cool a little bit, because I found out that when the roux is cooler and you pour cold liquid in it, in my case, it's going to be the milk mixed with water, but you could use broth too. I just use water. It's easier to dissolve all the flour so it doesn't get any lumps. I don't like lumps in my sauce, but you know, if it happens that you would get lumps in your sauce, you always have the option of putting it through a sieve towards the end before you add the dill to get rid of them. But I find out that just leave it cool down a little bit, and then in a little bit we're gonna add the milk mixture. I mixed the water and the milk, and I have it ready to go in. Now I want to talk a little bit about the dill. You have options. You know, I'm gonna use fresh dill, which you can buy in the store, either like this, or sometimes it comes in a box with the roots attached to it, so it's still living. I find that those have much thinner stems, so you can use more of it. But you know, this time I just bought the, you know, like a big bunch of dill. So you have all the thick stems and you have the fine things. So first you want to rinse it. I rinsed it, you know, maybe at 10, because I find that when it's dry, it's much easier to chop. It doesn't stick to your knife. It doesn't stick to everything. So I already pre-rinsed it, and now I'm just gonna pick all the fine greens, so there are no big stems left. So I'm gonna do that right here while I'm talking to you. So this recipe actually comes from the standard cooking guidebook, which was used for all restaurants in the Czech Republic. Every restaurant had to use the same standards. The recipes were always written for 10 people, so I had to adjust it a little bit. But to this day, it is my very favorite cookbook. It's not very fun. It has no pictures. It is very down to the point. But when I'm thinking, what should I make? What I haven't made for in a long time, it always has the best source for all the classics, and the recipes, as I said, you know, were cooked in every restaurant. So they are very tried and true recipes. So they work most of the times.
What's the name of the cookbook, Milano?
It's called Receptury teplých pokrmů. It's a huge book like this. This is how the recipes look like. Because they were made for restaurants, they have the beginning amount you need to use. Then they have the number for how much you're gonna lose by cooking. And this recipe was used to calculate the price the restaurant will be able to sell the dish for. And I'm sure all of you which visited the Czech Republic, that was my husband's first question, was like, why there is always a number before the name of the food you're going to be ordering, and then there is the price at the end. I said, that's the amount of meat you're going to get on your plate. So it was like a customer protection. And there were actually controllers which would visit the restaurants sometimes as secret diners, sometimes as an inspection, and they would order their food and then they would take it apart and weigh everything. And if you didn't get what you were asked for, you could be fined and stuff, or you could be bribed and let everything slide. So
we have one question, and
Sure.
the question is, if there is a situation you can poke the stems through a colander and then pull and remove the thick from the thin stems, would you recommend that?
I've never done it. I just do it. I'm holding it and just snip it with my thumbnail and the fingers. It's pretty quick, and you can
Jump.
see.
Can I in with the colander? It's more of a TikTok variety. It doesn't really work in a real life. We tried it.
Yeah. So, because it's nice because it's dry, so it's gonna be easy to chop. So it's not gonna stick together. You know, sometimes you can find even some other stems. So, okay, so we are done there. So I think by now the roux cooled down enough. So I'm just gonna, so it's still off the flame and it's all crumbly, and I'm gonna pour all the liquid in at the same time. And
At what point do you heat it back up?
After it dissolves. So now you just use the whisk and mix it and mix it and mix it and mix it. And you can let it stand for a minute or so, which I'm gonna do right now to show you. I said I'm making it today with potatoes. Koprová omáčka, I think everybody remembers it from their school cafeteria. And not everybody was a huge fan. At least I was not a huge fan of the school one, because the potatoes they only served it with potatoes and eggs. And usually the eggs were all mushy and the sauce was thin. I prefer my sauce a little thicker. So I was not a huge fan, but my grandma made a great one. So, but I always preferred it with a dumpling and some beef. So you can have the vegetarian option, or you can have the meat lovers option with the beef. And you know, if you did that, you could boil the beef until it's soft, and then you could use that broth for the sauce. But sometimes beef broth, especially if don't use ever the bouillon, because the bouillon is always dark in color. If you just boil beef, which you did not brown before boiling, you're gonna have nice and clear, and you want really light color for this sauce. So now I'm still mixing it, but almost there. So I'm gonna do it today with the eggs. I'm already boiling water, and I have the eggs ready right here. So I put the water was boiling. Oh, I forgot. So the eggs would be easier to peel. I add some salt to the boiling water, and I add some vinegar. And this is no science, no measurement, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And now we can add the eggs. So I found out that if I lower them in a spoon or a ladle, they are less likely to break when you're putting there. And because it's gonna be the main source of protein in the dish, you want them to look pretty. So I found a trick So you would have the egg yolk right in the middle, that when the water starts, you put it on the stove, and when the water starts boiling again, you can take a spoon and stir the eggs, and in another minute again. And the way the egg rotates, the egg yolk is gonna stay nicely in the middle. And this also helps, like if you're making deviled eggs, or if you're making chlebičky, you know, like the open face sandwiches, and you want to have the eggs for decorating, that the egg yolk is going to stay nicely in the middle. So I'm stirring the eggs, and once
how many eggs, Milena, how many eggs?
It depends how much who are you feeding. If I was cooking for my boys, I'm sure they would have 2 eggs for lunch. I'm fine with 1. So it really depends how hungry your eaters are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now this looks pretty good, and I'm gonna turn it back on. And milk scorches easily too. So do not cook any cream sauces on high flame. Maybe on low or maybe medium is the best. You know, it might take a little longer, but you're not gonna scorch your sauce, and it's gonna remain, because the milk is sweet. So the sugar, it would be the sugars in the milk which would start burning, and then first the color would be spoiled, and then you might get some bitter flavor from the burned bottom. And you wanna, again, keep mixing it so it's nice and smooth. And we're gonna peel the potatoes, which we're gonna serve that on the side with the dish. I don't like using russet potatoes because they are too mushy for this. And so I use the gold ones, because first the color is prettier, and then when they're boiled, they don't disintegrate. The russets are great like for mashed potatoes and stuff, but you wanna use any kind of waxier potatoes so they would retain their shape and
Milena,
pretty on the plate when you're serving.
Milena, we had a comment from somebody, why the egg, and why would it be egg accompanying this dish? That their family never did that. So I would assume that there are 2 different versions. Why one is the meat lover with beef, and one is the vegetarian with egg and potatoes, correct?
Mm-hmm. Like in the school cafeteria, again, I grew up in the socialist Czechoslovakia, so everything had their rules and everything had standards. So there had to be a source of protein on your plate. So you would not have just you wouldn't have just the sauce and knedlík, or have the sauce, or have the sauce and the potatoes. So the source of protein would be the egg in this case. And you can do hard-boiled egg, you can do soft-boiled egg, you can do poached eggs. It's pretty much, up to you. When I talked with Lenka about my recipe, she says she just fries an egg, open face. So it's pretty much whatever you want. If you don't want any eggs, more power to you. I think everything with food is you do it so you would like it. If you
it's a suggestion, right?
Yeah, it's just a suggestion. So, okay. So I'm gonna start boiling the potatoes. I'm gonna cut them into smaller pieces, and then we're gonna chop the dill. And does anyone have any questions? Nope, that's good.
I do not have a question, but I just want to share a story that we always did koprovka, or my mom always cooked koprovka after Easter, because we had lots of hard-boiled eggs, and it was a good dish just to use the hard-boiled eggs.
Excellent. I like that. Okay, so I'm turning my potatoes on. I put some salt in there. And again, the amounts are very individual. And the same goes for when we're gonna taste the sauce later on. Some people like it saltier, some people like it sweeter, some people like it more tart. So you taste it, take, I'm sure you noticed that you have the recipes in your packet. And after today, I'm gonna be sending out another email. Again, it's gonna have all the recipes in. So if you're taking any notes, you can just transfer them to the recipes. So those amounts are suggestions. Don't, sauce, soup are pretty flexible. With Blanca's recipe, follow it. Baking is definitely more tricky. There is more chemistry to it. So follow that one to the letter, because you're gonna have it's a tried and true recipe. So you're gonna be good.
Milena,
Yeah.
we have one question, and the question is regarding beef, which we're not making today. But if you were to make it with beef, how long would you cook it?
Oh boy, it depends on the beef. Like Czech beef, you would boil it forever.
For a long time.
Long time. Here I found the beef cooks much quicker, maybe an hour, hour and a half. It depends how big the size of beef would be. And I would usually do beef ball for this one.
Make sure it's nice and tender.
Yeah. So you can just poke it with a knife after an hour and see if it's nice and soft, and then boil it for a little longer. Okay, so now my sauce, Desi, I might need your help. Or you know what, I'm gonna try to just lift it up. The sauce.
Don't spill it.
I don't wanna spill it. So, there we go. So it's
Nice and thick.
I prefer my sauces thicker. So if you like them thinner, you can just add milk. We're still gonna add cream to this, but not too much. So it's not gonna get much thinner than this. And so now I wanna cook it for a little bit to get all the flour, the raw flour taste out of it. So we can go and check with Blanca, how is her babovka doing?
All right. Thank you, Blanco. Oh, thank you, Milena.
Okay. Hi. So I'm looking at my timer, and it says about 6 more minutes. So we can check the babovka. I'm gonna show you. I do not like to open the oven while the bundt cake is cooking, or any other cake, because if it's undercooked, it might deflate down. Oh wow! So it just did a shape I never ever happened to me. So usually what happens is that I'm gonna show it a little bit. See, babovka?
Yep.
Yeah. So usually what happens is that the bundt cakes grow out of the form of the pan. It goes very, very high up. And when it is cooking, it's kind of deflating down. That's a normal. I'm sorry. That's a normal reaction. And so do not be scared. That's definitely normal.
Okay.
My bundt cake risen way too high. And as it was going down, it got stuck on the middle. So we will see how it turns out today. It never happened to me before, so I do not know. The one way to check that the bundt cake is already cooked or close to being cooked is that it started to like shrink and also pull away from the pan. So you can see the little edge, it's pulling away. I also want to talk about a little bit about the gluten-free diet, because if you plan to make this dessert for a person who is gluten-free, you also have to check other ingredients to be gluten-free. For example, we use the baking powder, and you want to make sure that the baking powder you are using is gluten-free. It usually says on the baking powder does not say on this one, but what you want to look for is that it does not share the facility with wheat or not the process with the same facility as the wheat. And for the other ingredients as well. So the cornstarch and stuff like that. I'm also, you also want to make sure that your utensils you're using are cleaned. If like give it one more clean and make your surfaces are clean, because it's like any other allergy. If you like have a nut allergy or people who has nut allergy or stuff like that, it might be dangerous to them. I'm gonna decorate my bundt cake when it's cooked with a chocolate, like a ganache or melted chocolate. You can use a plain sugar just to sprinkle over the top. And I'm gonna show you how I'm doing my melted chocolate. I love to use a dark chocolate with the high percentage, like 60 or even 72. The Ghirardelli chocolate, it's gluten-free. And the one thing, what you're gonna do is to chop your chocolate like fine. You wanna put it in a microwave safe bowl, because I do melt my chocolate in a microwave, which is the quickest, the fastest way. You can use the double boiler method and melt the chocolate in a bowl over a hot water. But the microwave is really fast, but you have to follow some rules because it's very easy to burn chocolate in the microwave. So I put my chocolate in microwave safe dish, and I'm using a coconut oil. I like to use a coconut oil to thin it down a little bit. You can use butter, you can use regular oil. I like to use a coconut oil for half or like a little bit more than half, 2/3 of the chocolate bar. I'm using like a tablespoon or about more than half a tablespoon of the oil. So, and I'm just gonna pop it in the microwave for 1 minute. And you have to remember that once you put it for 1 minute, every 20 seconds, you have to stir in. So you can see the timer is going. And once the 20 seconds are up, I just open the microwave and stir the chocolate. It's you will see that it's already melting. And within 1 minute, you have nicely melted chocolate. So that was the first 20 seconds. You can see it's starting to melt already. Maybe, I do not know if you can see it. So I'm gonna stir it and put it back in the microwave for another 20 seconds. Every microwave is different. My microwave, it's like 1000 watts, so it's kind of like high. So you can, you might end up to do it for 1 minute and a half. It depends, but I still recommend to stir every 20 seconds. See how the chocolate is already melting? Can you see it?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Blanco.
So,
I
and
was wondering whether we should go back to Lenko. Are you in a good place?
Yes.
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 Blanco, can you wait a little bit so that we can jump into Lenka's?
I think we're taking out the babovka because the timer just ran out.
Okay.
Long.
Yes.
So we'll stay with Blanca for a little bit, Lenko, if that's all right.
Yes.
Okay. And
I'm gonna
see... Mhm.
I'm gonna show you babovka. So right now you can see what shape it made. It looks kind of funny. It never happened to me before, but first time for anything. You can see how the cake is pulling out from the pan. away from the pan. Can you see it?
Yes.
How nice it's coming out. And if you take a toothpick and you stuck it in the middle and take it out, you can see that it's still absolutely clean. There are no breadcrumbs or anything. I like to poke a couple holes so the air can go out. With the babovka, what I usually do, I just take a clean plate, put it on top of babovka. You have to be careful because it's really hot. And with my mittens, I'm gonna put it down here.
It over.
With my mittens, I will turn it over. Look, plate, king, turn it over. Like this, just like that. And if you buttered it properly, you will just be able to pull it up. If there is, see, just like this.
Ah, beautiful.
If there is any problem and the bundt cake is not coming out, what I recommend is to take a dish towel. I'm just gonna put it back in. To take a dish towel, wet it with like a cold water and fold it over or your bundt cake. I'll leave it to cool like that for a little bit, because as the bundt cake is cooling down, it's gonna shrink. So even though you were unsuccessful at the first try to lift the pan, then as it shrinks and cools down, you will be able to lift it. So this is the bundt cake. And after we come back, I will show you how to decorate or what to do with it.
Thank you. It looks beautiful.
Questions about the bundt cake? No. So I turn it over to Lenka or
Thank
whoever.
you so much.
Welcome.
Okay, here I am. Okay, the soup is still cooking. I think it will need a little bit more. So the potato is soft and tender, and the cabbage too. But I can show you now how I'm gonna make it a little thicker. I use about 2 to 3 spoons of flour, and then I put about 3 spoons of water and I mix it so it's like pretty thick, and this way there are no clumps, you know, it's just pretty smooth. Then I add more water and I mix it and I make it like, you know, so the flour dissolves and I don't want to have any clumps. And when I decide that the soup is fully cooked, I first actually taste it and then I add this thickening liquid. It's more like a, you know, thick cream or something. So it goes easily into the pot. And what I will do, I just pour it in and stir. So, and then you have to cook it at least 5 more minutes so the taste of the flour goes away. And that will be that. Then you have to, of course, taste it. Like Milena says, everything depends on your individual taste. Sometimes if the soup, sauerkraut soup, is too sour, you can even add some sugar. I prefer not to, but it actually works. If you want the soup a little more spicy and hot, you can add chilies or anything spicy, or even more pepper. Other spices go too. I know that Milena said she usually uses majorette too, majoranka. I don't do in this soup, but you might. I have even seen recipes with vegetables where people add, they cook it from the beginning with little carrots, celery, anything you want, right? It's just very individual, whatever you like. And then I have one thing that has nothing to do with my soup, just like an interesting thing about Milena's dill sauce. Like you were wondering why you have egg or beef. I lived in Sweden in 15 years, and in Sweden you eat dill sauce with fish, usually white fish and potato. So actually Up to you what you eat dill sauce with. Okay.
They're universal.
Sorry?
It's universal.
It's universal, yes, but you eat it with whatever you like, right?
Yes. Thank you, Lanko.
Okay. If there is any questions, I answer. If not, we can put it back to, I think, Milena.
I think, Blanco, do you want to go next or Milano? Blanco, why don't you go then? Decorate the babovka.
Okay, so the best way to decorate your bundt cake is after it's completely cooled down. So that's not possible to achieve right now because I just pulled it out of the oven. But I'm just gonna show you how to do it. So with the sugar, if you wanna try the sugar, what I recommend to use is classic powdered sugar and is it sift? Jak se řekne sítko?
Sifter, yeah.
Okay, sifter. I'm sorry, sometimes I don't know the words. So you just basically put and on top of like this, so it has like nice white, like a snowy texture. So this is the one way to decorate your bundt cake. Because my bundt cake is hot, the sugar is gonna dissolve, like gonna be sucked into the oil, so it disappears. But once it's cooled down, it's gonna stay like this, nicely and powdery. Another way is to use the ganache or a chocolate, melted chocolate. You see how nicely it melted. Because I was stirring in a microwave every 20 seconds, so there is no burnt smell. You can, and what I do, if the cake is cool, you just kind of like nicely top it over. You can see because my bundt cake is not cooled, that it's again, can you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
again, off, and it's kind of sucking into the cake. But that's you can get the image of nice chocolatey decoration, chocolate decoration.
One of our favorite of our family is that we mix powdered sugar with rum, the Czech rum, the one that's no longer called rum, and you make a thick paste, and it's very tasty and it smells wonderful.
Yeah, what I do, it's like kind of like as you take it out of the oven, you can like with the pastry brush, I just put it in and I kind of like brush it with the rum.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that.
Can't go wrong with rum. That's right.
Like brush it, you have the nice smell. But this one is like a vanilla, so I'm usually do not using rum on this one because it's we like the vanilla taste.
It looks beautiful, Blanco. Thank you so much. Now,
My
unless somebody
family,
has any questions, yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
I think I've shared this before, but my family uses a lot of powdered sugar. So we just keep this in our powdered sugar container. It's
that's
one
fantastic.
of those tea strainers, and then you just kind of tap it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And just scoop
Thank
as
you.
you need. Okay.
All right. I think we're good. Go ahead, Milano. I think it's your turn.
I wanted to show one more time that that's how it's looked inside. And I do not recommend to cut it now because it's gonna shrink down a little bit, but I'm just holding it to show you how the marble looks inside, the chocolate and the vanilla layers.
Looks beautiful.
You don't want to cut your marble cake while it's still hot. So do not do what I just did.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Milano, it's your turn now. Okay. Let's go back to our dill sauce.
Very good. So it's nice and thick. The taste of the flour is already gone. So I am ready to just put a little bit of salt in there. So I will just do a pinch. And again, you know, I'm gonna keep tasting it. Then I'm gonna do a teaspoon of sugar. Some people like it sweeter. I don't have a sweet tooth, so I just, you know, really just not even a full teaspoon to put it in. for me, the milk and the cream is sweet enough. And I turn the heat off. So now it's all fully cooked. So now I'm turning it off the heat because we want to add the finishing touches without boiling it again. Because once we put the cream in there and then the dill, first, if we cook it with the dill, it's gonna kind of brown, and we want the soup sauce look nice and white liquid with the nice pretty green things. And I started chopping it. You want to have it pretty fine, and usually I just put it on the cutting board, take my knife and just rock the knife over and over and over and over until you get a really nice fine chopped dill. If you do not have fresh dill, you can use dry dill, and you just need to be tasting it for the amount you really like. So, but you can use dry dill as well. Now, while we were watching Lenka and Blanca, the eggs are fully cooked. So I just learned recently a new trick how to peel them. So I'm gonna try it. Hopefully it works today too. That you take the egg out, you take a glass with water, you put the egg in there, you close the lid, and you just shake it. And oops, it didn't work this time. It worked when I was trying it because I really liked the idea. So this one didn't work. So, but last time I did it, the egg, the peel just slid off the egg. Now the egg yolk jumped up. So as I said, maybe
Doesn't work every time.
With the traditional. So I'm gonna peel them under cold water. Like after they stop boiling, you just put them in cold water that chocks the eggs. And one thing I found, that the older the eggs, the easier they peel. If you have your own chickens, don't use the fresh eggs, because what happens inside the egg is, as the egg ages, it shrinks because the moisture evaporates, so it peels off the side. That's why the older egg is easier to peel. But again, don't use too old eggs, well, so you don't get sick. But anyway, so I'm gonna go back to my sauce. So now this is fully boiled. I have my half cup of cream. I'm gonna pour the whole thing in and whisk it until it's nice and smooth. And the original recipe, like if you look online for recipes, some people use vinegar. I prefer lemon because I think lemon is gentler. It's not as acidic, or it's not as strong as vinegar. And people who do use vinegar, they recommend heating up the vinegar before you pour it in. That there is some chemistry to it, that if it's hot when you pour it in, it's not gonna break the cream. With the lemon, I just have a cut up lemon and just squeeze it in. And again, this is totally up your individual taste. I will squeeze in the whole half. I like mine on the tartar side, so I will do the half.
And Milena, one of the questions was how much dill do you put in? Is it about half a cup?
I did not quite the whole bunch. I have this left, so maybe half of the bunch, which you buy at the store.
So would you say about a half a cup or a cup? Or does it depend in your individual taste?
Again, yeah.
Yeah. It looks like a half a cup.
So because this one is already chopped, so it shrinks because there's nothing to hold it up. So I think when it's chopped, this would be maybe 1/3 of a cup of the already chopped ones. So before I add the dill in, I'm gonna taste it and see. It needs definitely more salt, but it has enough lemon juice and enough sweet for me. So the very last thing, not very last, one before last, I add the dill, the koper. And mix it in. Oh, this looks good. And actually it's definitely on a thicker side, so I might add just a little bit more milk to it. So, can you see it okay? So
Yeah,
I
that
think
looks
it's a little
beautiful.
thicker, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more milk. Just so it would be the nice pouring sauce consistency. That's good. And the very last step, and again, it is off the flame. Don't forget to turn it off the flame because you don't want the dill to cook. We have the last sliver of butter, and
That's the one that you saved at the beginning, correct?
right. That's right. And I'm just gonna whip it in. It's gonna dissolve, and it softens the flavor. You know, you can skip it if you forget. You can skip it, but I like it that way. So the sauce is done. I'm gonna check my potatoes. They're done as well. So I'm gonna drain the potatoes and I will put everything on a plate and I'm gonna peel if anybody has a question, I can answer now as I'm peeling the egg.
So one of the questions is if there's extra dill sauce left over, can it be reheated without curdling?
You have to heat it very, very on a simmer and stir it.
And on the stove rather than a microwave?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. That kind of goes with majority of cream sauces. And the
Like
last,
Alfredo sauce. Mm-hmm.
I actually used oat milk for people who can't have milk, and it turned out good too. Okay. So I think, you know, you can use some alternatives as well. Okay, so this one peeled nicely without my new method. So now I'm gonna plate everything. So I'm just gonna, you would take a few potatoes. I should drain the whole pot next time, but I just wanted you to see. So we would put the potatoes on, pour some sauce. And we will split the egg in half. Oh, it's beautiful. And we can take some of the dill we have left over and use it for decorating.
Oh, that looks beautiful.
So there is your Sunday lunch.
Wish we could taste it. There's one more question, Milano. Can the butter be substituted by coconut oil possibly?
I've never done that.
Okay. I think it would change the structure a little bit and definitely the flavor because coconut is so specific.
Yeah, it has pretty distinctive taste. So I think you would definitely taste it.
Yeah, but you can substitute milk for oat, or you said you made it with oat, or you can make possibly almond milk.
Definitely non-flavored though.
Non-flavored, right? Not the vanilla sugar flavored. You're right. Yeah, I think it's making all of us hungry now. I'd like to try the babovka, and I would certainly try to make the soup. And I have some sauerkraut that I received from a friend of mine who makes it at home, and I think that's what we're gonna do this afternoon for dinner.
Awesome. That sounds good.
Any questions from the group? You guys have been so patient.
Actually, speaking of homemade sauerkraut, if you don't buy it from the Polish grocery store, I know that there are different kinds of ways to make sauerkraut. So is it just the cabbage and salt version?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I make my own sauerkraut, and it's not that difficult. The main ingredient to sauerkraut is patience, because you chop the cabbage, then you put a salt. There is a formula, and I can put it in the email if you're interested, in the thank you email link. And then you squeeze it, and it releases some juices. And I leave it overnight, and then you just pack it in the mason jar with the breathing, I don't know what you call it, the kvasná rorka on the top. So the gas, which is created during the fermenting process, has a place to escape. And within 3 weeks, you have fabulous sauerkraut. And then I just put it in the fridge, and it lasts a couple months.
Yeah.
So we eat it.
It's showing, I'm just making the sauerkraut. So I'm just showing.
Yeah, perfect.
In fact, it's been there for a week. It's been packed in the jar. I bought on Amazon a fermenting kit. And as Milena said, it has like a vent on a top. And there are many different, and the main key also is the like a weight. So you need to weight it down. So all the sauerkraut it's underneath the water. So this is the weight I'm using, and this is the lid for the mason jar with the open one. It's a silicone one which allows it go out, the gas go out.
I'm using a different one. So the lid has a hole, and then this is the top. You put water in there, then so the water, the gas goes through the water and out, so there is definitely no way of any gas going back in. I found it with the ones which Blanca has. Sometimes it works, but I have had it happen that it started molding, because you need to make really sure that there is a little cut at the top of the nipple, and if it gets dry, there is a little opening, and the air can then get back in. It needs to be sealed. So you, like, if it's old or you didn't wash it properly, and there is a little gap at the top, that it can not work as well. But so you have
two things. It's great that you guys both have your fermenting supplies in hand's reach. That's awesome. And secondly, it sounds like we found another topic for a future one, where like maybe someone starts 3 weeks ahead of time and the other person starts
there you go
live. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Okay, guys, I should just finish my soup, right? So I still have the flour and the water. Katushko, camera. Okay, my cameraman is not paying attention. So I'm gonna go to the stove where it's almost cooked. Okay, I would say. You wanna show the picture? You see the paprika kind of a little bit got lighter. It depends now of the taste. You can taste it and put more paprika, more other spices, taste for salt. Now I'm doing the thickening. I'll take the flour with the water, pour it in, and then I just stir it, and then cook for at least 5 minutes. It's good to stir from time to time, because as soon as there is flour in anything, it can burn from the bottom, right? But we've learned with the sauce too. So I can cover it for a couple of minutes because it's not gonna be boiling now, but I'll be coming back to it and stirring. And then I'll do the final tasting and adjusting to whatever I like. I think that's about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the 3 cooks and chefs. And thank you for showing us new recipes or old recipes in a new way. And thank you. I hope you all enjoyed our session today, and that you will join us again in our future Zoom classes. And keep our website in mind, sokolsanfrancisco.org. And we have our events planned, and we have our walks planned. So we're looking forward to seeing you again. And if you have any questions, please email us at sokolsfevents@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. Happy Sunday.